My name is Raluca Gordan. I do a combination of computer science and genomics. My background as actually from 5th grade until the end of college, I did mostly computer science. But now I apply computer science to analyze genomics data. Some of the most exciting thing we do now is trying to understand mutagenesis. So we're looking at how mutations form in the DNA. And we are working on a lot of cancer genomes, and we need to process it very efficiently. And we're trying to understand where those mutations in the cancer genome came from, what kind of processes generated those mutations. We generate some data ourselves. We damage the DNA in the lab. I also have a laboratory where we do experiments. And we combine our data with what's already available from cancer genomic studies. When I started the lab, so my faculty position, the main interest was to use computational models to understand how molecules interact with each other. So we're studying interactions between proteins and DNA. And it's nice because they have very different alphabets and they have very different structures. So there's some geometry in there and thinking about the molecules in 3D, but also a lot of sequence data, either ACGT for the DNA alphabet or a 20-letter alphabet for the proteins. So I started the lab with this goal in mind of studying protein DNA binding and being able to characterize these interactions very quantitatively. And the idea was to generate some data, but then because we cannot measure everything, the genome is 3 billion bases. Even with current technologies, you cannot measure everything. So our idea was to do some high throughput measurements, like tens of thousands of measurements, but then use computational models to predict beyond what we can measure. Predict what would happen if the genome is mutated, or other things happen in the cell. So in the end, we want to be able to predict things. So that's how I started. Definitely undergraduate. I think also some of it in high school. Right now, depending on what we do, we may program in Java, Python, R. If we do more engineering type work, a lot of those are done in MATLAB. But Java was such a great place to start because I find it easier to learn. And then once you learn one language, it's so easy to learn another and another and another as you need them for different types of computational analysis. For genomics, what's used the most is probably Python. Oh, it is. And that's in part because we don't know what we're supposed to get. It's not like a homework where we expect a specific result. We make some hypothesis, we have some idea what we might see at the end of the analysis, but we don't know what the answer is, otherwise we wouldn't be doing the research. So we have to be super confident about the code we write. because we don't want the bugs in the code to lead us to a result, then go to the lab and do experiments, kind of thinking that our result is correct, and have it be the result of a bug. So because we don't know what to expect as a result, we may not be able to tell from the result that there's something wrong with the code. So many times we have to be very, very careful when we program to make sure we don't introduce bugs, because it can be hard to detect them. I liked it because people, when they think genomics, they think a lot about genes, and of course there's a lot of work on mutations in genes because they can cause diseases, but genes make up only 2% of our genome. The rest, at some point, was called junk DNA. It's not junk, we just didn't know what it does. But a lot of the rest of the genome is used in order to regulate the genes and tell the cells when to use a gene, how much to express a gene, protect some genes so they're not used when they're not supposed to. But there's so much DNA in there, and we just don't understand what it does. We don't know how to read it. We read the basis, but we don't know the language. We don't know what it means. So I thought with the computational background that I have, I can help with this puzzle. I remember starting in 5th grade. I don't remember why. The computers just seem interesting, but at that time, computers were very different, and you had to do a lot of work to program. But I think I liked the fact that I would tell the computer what to do, and the computer would do it. It's that easy. So in real life, it's not that you tell people what to do and they'll do it. And then I realized it allows me to solve problems that way. And something that I realized a bit later was that also the learning computer science would open the doors to so many types of jobs, not just software engineering, but computer science is used in so many fields, and there's big data everywhere, in business, in research, in the medical field. So having a strong background in computer science, I thought would give me a lot of options. Whatever questions we come across, we'll follow them. I didn't set up trying to understand how mutations are generated in the genome, but that's kind of where the research took us. We make observations from the data. Those observations raise questions, and we just follow those questions. For now, I think we'll, for the next few years at least, we'll do a lot of work in DNA damage and repair. And that's because I realized that this is an area where there isn't yet we don't have very big data sets, or not as much as in regulatory genomics. And a lot of the work is done in small biochemistry labs that don't have computational expertise. So even if they can generate more data, they wouldn't know how to analyze it. So that's been really limiting. So now we work a lot with professors in biochemistry at Duke, but also at other universities, to try to understand how our DNA is damaged and how to be repaired or not repaired, and how that leads to mutations. And it also goes a bit the other way, because knowing what we can do with the data, knowing what kind of modeling we can do with the data, allows us to design our experiments in a way that we have everything we need for the computational analysis. It's getting better. When I was still in middle school, I used to go to these programming competitions. That was back in Romania. I did my, up until undergraduate, I did my training in Romania. And I remember going to a computer science contest where there were 300 boys and 10 girls. It was that unbalanced. Now when I look around, like at conferences, it's not that unbalanced anymore. So we do see more and more female students and faculty. It's not about skills, it's just the mentality that, I don't know, we're not supposed to do this, or we wouldn't be good at it. So we also have some programs at Duke that encourage for girls in primary school and middle school to encourage them to do computer science and also more generally STEM. More than in the past. But, and it also varies, I think, from place to place. But definitely one reason, I did my PhD at Duke, and I came back to Duke as faculty after a couple of years. And one reason was that it is a very open place. And even as a female student in computer science, I didn't feel like I'm a minority. And as faculty is the same, and they're really making an effort to increase representation. So I kind of navigated towards environments where things are better, but there is a long way to go. I mean, with computer science and science in general, it's very important to be creative, because you're not doing something that's very, I don't know, repetitive, or you're doing the same thing over and over again. You need to create, and then the more diverse of a team you have doing that, the better. And that's, yes, male and female, but also people coming from different backgrounds, even different scientific backgrounds. I see that in my group. So I really don't see any downside of having this diversity and having input from people who think a bit differently. If everybody's trained the same way and thinks in the same way, like, you're not going to find new solutions. You're just going to find old solutions you've been learning in school. So yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping, like, I see the really small girls, like second, third grade. They don't even think that, oh, boys do this and girls don't. I mean, for them, it's all the same. I don't know when this differentiation starts that makes girls think they cannot do computer science. So I don't know, my advice would be to just ignore that noise, telling them they cannot do things, because they can, and it's just a matter of trying it out, and see what part of computer science they like best. And it doesn't have to be, I don't know, developing games. That's what boys like to do. It can be doing some science, solving problems. You can do just so many things. And also encourage, one thing I noticed, I also work a bit with high school students. And I noticed that girls who have never done programming up until high school have a very hard time starting, because many of their friends already know. And I don't know if nobody's encouraging them to start. And they feel like, oh, I don't know this, I cannot do this. But once they start, they realize it's really not hard and everybody can do this. So I also try to encourage female students to start, even if it's late, even if it's in college, or sometimes they actually don't have experience until they get to their PhD. It's never too late. And yes, you're not going to be at the same level as your friends who've been programming for a while, but you can get there. So just keep at it. I think something that I thought when I was doing computer science all those years was that the main thing you can do with it is software engineering. Like make programs for whatever, for the Google, Amazon, all these social media platforms, or for selling stuff, or for like retailing. But I never thought until I got to my PhD how much I can use computer science for research and kind of healthcare, and to really improve people's lives, not just through fun applications, which have their own purpose. But it can make such a big difference with computer science in fields like genomics and in general in biomedical research. And that's an area where female students are not that underrepresented, but still they don't have that much of a computational background. I would encourage them to also think about applications in science and medicine more broadly.